It's 5. It's 7:30 in the morning. Just had the CBC interview, and it was really cold even for Edmonton at this time of year. It's supposed to get warmer tomorrow. Thank God. We're on the 18th floor.
Yes, we did. Very comfortable. So what we want to do now is just take time of like a half a minute. This is my road manager, David.
Hi.
Hello, David.
And what we'll do is
That's great, George.
you're ready anytime?
Yep.
To start?
Yep, go ahead.
Today is day 296, and we're back here in Edmonton, and we're going to be meeting the health minister in about a couple of hours. And the Edmonton House Suite Hotel, I want to make sure I said that right, once again came to our rescue and gave us excellent accommodations and service. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much.
George, you're very welcome, and I know you'd like to stay with us again tonight because of your schedule, so we're arranging that for you now.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, thank
so
you.
if we can help you in any way at all.
I'd like
no
to thank you as well.
No problem.
Okay,
This is
thank
very
you.
important what you're doing, George, and
Thank you.
we wish you all of the luck.
Thank
You're leaving and going to Lethbridge, I think, right?
Yes, and early in the morning. We'll probably leave about 3 in the morning.
So then you definitely need to stay one night for sure.
Well,
right?
Yes.
Half of one night.
Half of one night. But if we can be of help, no problem.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And I know that you're in a hurry, and we got to go back upstairs to do
Okay.
a couple more things.
No problem.
Nice
Okay.
meeting you.
And
Thank
you
you.
both as well.
Thank you.
He's going to make a proclamation to support that need to be addressed, and so we're just extremely happy with today.
Where did you start this, and how long ago, and how many kilometers have you walked?
I started in Toronto, June 20th, and I've covered over 180 cities and towns so far. I've walked over 4,000 kilometers. I'm scheduled to be in Victoria on July 27th. Not finishing there. From there, we're arranging a flight to Rome. We're just waiting for a phone call from the Pontiff's office to have an audience with the Pope, so we can get his support on organ and tissue donations. And from there, we're going to get dropped off at St. John's, Newfoundland, where I'll continue walking through the Maritimes, through Quebec, and then back to Toronto, where I'll be finished, hopefully in one piece, on February the 20th, 2002.
That's when we expect to finish. Now, personally, why you?
Well, besides being insane, 5 years ago, I was rushed to the hospital with liver failure, and I was told at that point that I only had 2 days left to live. And you know, like most people on the waiting list, we pretty well planned our funerals. So the next day an organ became available, and I was the individual that made that decision, and the family that carried through that decision. I wanted to walk to acknowledge what they did, you know, and to hopefully inspire many other Canadians to do the same.
That's great. Thanks. And it's G-E-O-R-G-E.
That's plate, as I've been calling it, and he has today. So we were presently supposed to be in Coaldale, but we made the arrangements in Coaldale to have someone else be present for me there, and we needed to attend this because it's a big highlight of the whole campaign.
Is this a spur of the moment thing that he's here when you're sorting in the neighborhood?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You know, as Mr. Rock has mentioned, he's been following my campaign, and you know, he was hearing what I was saying, and you know, along with other groups and organizations, and he's stepping up to the plate. You know, and I looked at his agenda and his plans. It's right on the money. You know, it's exactly the things that we need to be addressing and taking care of, and you know, this is a very, very happy day for Canadians.
All I needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Maybe Angela sent out some information on that.
That may be one thing. Yes. Oh, recently. I saw something just.
Hey, say hi to the camera. Hi. Hey, there we go. These are all transplant recipients or waiting for transplant, sitting in the front. This little fella here has had a heart transplant. And hey, there you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, number 2, we have an announcement that is good for all Canadians and further establish Alan Rock. To Minister Rock's left, one of Edmonton's own members of Parliament and Minister of Justice, the Honourable Anne McClellan. And of course, to the left of Minister Anne McClellan sits our own Provincial Minister of Health. As I introduce a group of men and women who are members of the board of the Capital Health Authority. They won recently, this group of ladies and gentlemen, the National Conference Award in Governance for all sectors for all of Canada. Please hold your applause, and I'll ask him to stand. Peter Bidlock, Leonard Blumenthal, Linda Mabbitt, they're all in the back. They're all standing. Thank you, Linda, there you are. Al Mondor, I know, right over there. Margaret Plain, in the back as well, and Les Young. Ladies and gentlemen, your Capital Health Board of Directors. And the person who does all the real work, Sheila Weatherall, the CEO and President of Capital Health. I guess his pager went off. Also, Dr. Jonathan Lakey, Medical Director of Capital Health, Comprehensive Tissue Center. Dr. Lakey. Nice to have you here. Why are we here? Don't proudly say, there is no better location in Canada, is there, than to make this announcement. Here at Capital Health, we rank among the nation's leaders for all types of organ donations and transplants. For example, last year, 41 people received a new heart in this hospital. How many people received a new liver? 65. In fact, in the last few years, we have held the record in Canada for the most number of heart transplants of any other health system in the country. As a matter of fact, if you combine all the heart transplants delivered in all the other hospitals in Canada, we still deliver more than all they combined, or all those programs combined. These numbers are remarkable. And we have our human organ procurement and As well, we do a remarkable number of other transplants. Last year, through tissue transplantation, our comprehensive tissue center helped approximately 1,200 people receive a higher quality of life. And of course, with the breakthrough, the Edmonton Protocol announced last year, we are the world leader in islet cell transplantation. These are important successes, ladies and gentlemen, but we always need to remember that every one of these excellent gifts began as a truly selfless act of an organ donor. And it just may be, you know, the ultimate kind of kindness. And one that's needed across our country in even greater numbers. But I suspect that's what Minister Rock will touch on. So ladies and gentlemen, now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Minister of Health for Canada, the Honourable Alan Rock.
You know that I'm allowed to leave at the end of the afternoon. Thank you all for being here to be part of this occasion. It's a pleasure to share this stage with my friend and colleague, the Attorney General, Anne McClellan, and my friend and counterpart, Minister of Health, Gary Marr. We're here today, as Neil said, to talk about a health issue of enduring and increasing urgency in Canada. Not just here in Alberta, but across the land. It's at once a very personal and a very public issue. It is, of course, the donation of our organs and tissues for transplantation so that others may live on. The subject touches the lives of so many people across Canada, so many people in this room, and I'm delighted that we have here today people who've received donated organs and representatives and members of families of those who've donated them. One of the hard lessons of life is that sometimes out of great tragedy can come reason for great hope. And words cannot express the value of the gift made by those who fill out their organ donation forms to share their lives and tell their families to share their decisions. We sometimes wonder these days where our heroes are. Well, they're all around us, and many of them are represented here today. Their private acts of kindness and of humanity involve so much of the public good. And we owe so much to the families who, in their immense grief at the loss of a loved one, see the enduring good that can come out of an otherwise tragic situation by permitting organs and tissues to be taken so that others can continue to live. Last year alone, some 1,800 organ transplants took place in Canada, almost 5 per day, and the rate of success is truly astonishing. With the current state of medical science, with the expertise of the health professionals like those here today. In most of those cases, a tragedy for one family made it possible for another family to have the joy of seeing a member continue with a healthy life. And yet, in far too many cases, organs and tissues that could have saved lives were not available. Last year in Canada, 147 people died waiting for a transplant. Some 3,700 Canadians are right now on lists waiting for the phone call from the doctor or the hospital, waiting for the call to say that an organ, a heart, a liver, a kidney is available. And sadly, the gap between the number of organs and tissues that people need and the number that are actually available continues to widen. And the cause is clear. It's Canada's relatively low rate of organ donation. For many reasons, we have fewer than 14 donors per million people nationally, one of the lowest rates in the industrialized world. I think we can all agree Canada can do better. And I know we can all agree Canada must do better. Ministers of Health have agreed on a coordinated national strategy. And today, we're beginning the process of putting the elements of that strategy in place with a series of actions that will help build a strong national organ and tissue donation and transplant system. The plan has 5 parts. First, awareness. We will implement a national public awareness campaign to promote organ and tissue donation across Canada, developed in partnership with the Canadian Liver Foundation, provincial and territorial governments, and various other non-profit organizations. Awareness of what? Well, first of all, awareness of how each of us, wherever we live, can express our desire to donate organs and tissues at the appropriate time. Second, awareness of how important it is for us to discuss that intention with members of our family and with our friends. You know, in most parts of Canada, doctors feel they cannot go ahead with a donation and a transplant without the consent of the family of the patient who would be the donor. And if we haven't talked it over with our family members, they'll have a tough time making a difficult decision under very stressful circumstances. In fact, studies have shown that 96% of relatives agree to the organ donation if they already know the wishes of the patient who will be the donor. Only 58% of relatives will agree if they have not been included in the process of discussion in advance. In order to help us with this process of awareness, I'm delighted to say that Her Excellency the Governor-General of Canada has agreed to participate in the campaign as an honorary patron. And speaking of awareness, I want to acknowledge the presence here today of a man who is himself the recipient of a donated organ, whose life was renewed as a result, and has been spending the last few months walking across the country, carrying a torch, talking to families and Canadians along the way, bringing home the point that we should all be aware of the importance of organ donation. George Marcello, congratulations and thank you for what you've done.
Thank you, George.
Way to go, George.
The second element of this plan involves standards. Health Canada will contribute close to $2 million to the Canadian Standards Association to formalize 6 sets of safety and management standards that will serve as a clear, transparent, and responsible blueprint to improve organ and tissue donation across the country. The third element is leadership. And today I'm announcing the appointment of Dr. Philip Belitsky of Dalhousie University, a specialist in this field with an international reputation, who will chair a national council for organ and tissue donation. The council, which will be fully appointed in the weeks ahead, will provide advice on a national strategy to enhance organ and tissue donation and transplantation across the country. It'll provide advice on the best practices. Neil has pointed out that here in Alberta, we have the highest rate of donation in the country. We have to find out what you're doing right and share that experience with governments across Canada. Also to deal with ethical issues, to invoke public discussion of some of the ethical questions, and through dialogue, arrive at a consensus. The Council will have 15 members, including representatives of key professional donation and transplantation organizations, non-governmental organizations, the ethics community, spiritual and pastoral care community, and representatives of transplantation recipients as well as donor families. The fourth element is the ethics community, spiritual and pastoral care community, and representatives of transplantation recipients as well as donor families. The fourth element is coordination. We will establish a special National Health Canada Secretariat for organ and tissue donation to manage this plan, to support the National Council and to follow through. And here's the best part. This Secretariat will be located not in Ottawa, but right here in Edmonton, Alberta.
All right.
And the fifth element is funding. Over the coming 5 years, Health Canada will contribute $20 million to the Secretariat's programs and services to make sure that they serve the National Council in an effective way. Now, others today will speak to detailed elements of the plan, but let me say that in the last analysis, our purpose in being here today is to improve the prospects for those men and women and children across Canada who at this very moment are waiting for a transplant. Let me say a word about how health ministers arrived at this consensus, how we developed this national strategy. Such has an obvious place for strong federal leadership. This announcement also reflects the hard work and the commitment by all health ministers and each and every government of Canada. And I want to thank my colleague and friend Gary Marr for the hard work he's done in putting this strategy together. Thank you, Gary. Let me close by saying that it's important for us to be truthful and frank with ourselves on this subject. Today's announcement is obviously an important step, but there's much more that needs to be done. And ultimately, the responsibility lies with each and every one of us as individual men and women to make that very personal decision, to take the time and trouble to fill out the card and to talk with our family and friends about it. So let me end today by issuing a challenge to Canadians. We pride ourselves on being a caring and compassionate society. And there's so much about us that reflects those values, our healthcare system perhaps most of all. It seems to me that our practices in the donation of organs and tissues should reflect that nature. And I say that within the next 5 years, we should take it as our challenge as Canadians to become the leading nation in the world in terms of the number of organs and tissues donated for transplantation. We can do it. With this strategy, with this common political will, with the people we've assembled for the Council, with the public support that's now in place, with the increased awareness, we can make Canada the leader in the world for the rate of donations, and I challenge Canadians within the next 5 years to achieve that goal. That's the subject of today's appearance, and that's the challenge to which we now turn together. Thank you very much.
The stage this afternoon with my two colleagues, the two ministers of health, obviously Alan, with whom I work on a regular basis, and my former student, the Minister of Health, Gary Marr. I had the pleasure of teaching Gary in law school. And Gary brings all the enthusiasm and energy and joy to his daily work as our Minister of Health that he delivered every day in the classroom in law school. So it's always a pleasure to be able to share a stage with both of my colleagues. I'm really here this afternoon as a proud member of Parliament representing the city of Edmonton and the province of Alberta. And as Neil has already mentioned, I think it is a very special day for us here in Edmonton. And the decision to locate the Canadian Council for Donation and Transplantation right here in our community is a testimonial to the... In fact, Alberta is twice blessed because we have another transplant program in Calgary. In the past couple of years, we have seen extremely promising research into the transplantation of islets to address type 1 diabetes, research that is known as the Edmonton Protocol to diabetes experts around the world. When you match that record with the rest of the impressive health research taking place here at the University of Alberta and its associated teaching hospitals, I think it should be clear to all of us why this National Council will make its home here in Edmonton, something all Edmontonians and all Albertans can take pride in. And you know, as Alan has mentioned, I think when we think about today, yes, it's a day of pride for Edmonton, for all the health researchers and doctors who work in this area here in our community and across the country. But this day is really about the individuals, some of whom we're going to hear from later, those who have received organ or tissue transplants, and those who donated, and representatives of family members who donated organs or tissue for transplants. And in conclusion, just let me say that what is so important is those people, and also the challenge that Alan has issued to all of us. And Gary and I were talking about this downstairs before we came up. How many of you know that if you flip over your Alberta health card, there is a donor application on the back? How many of you know that? How many of you in the media know that? And how many of you have signed that donor card? Good for you, as has the Minister of Health for Alberta, the Minister of Health for Canada, as has the Minister of Justice for Canada.
All right.
And let me say, the media can play a really important role in all of this today, because this announcement is a special one. It's an important day for our healthcare system, not only here in Alberta, but across the country. But you this evening, and all your newscasts, and tomorrow in your papers, can remind Albertans and Canadians about that donor or organ donor card that all of us should be signing, and all of us should be talking to our families about. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here with my colleagues today. This is a tribute to how federal and provincial governments work together, how governments work with healthcare professionals, health authorities like the Capital Health Authority, the largest in our country, and I think the very best. And I think today is ultimately about all of us as individuals in this society and in our communities and in our families, understanding that there are such profoundly important ways that we can make a difference and that we can improve the quality of life and, dare I say, even give life. And I would just encourage everyone in conclusion, take out your Alberta health card, turn it over, and sign that organ donation card. Thank you very much.
You're from BC.
Thank you very much, Neil. It's always a treat for me to be here at the University of Alberta Hospital, and it's a particular pleasure to join Ministers McClellan and Rock in this announcement that I think very much recognizes Alberta's leadership in the area of transplantation and in health research. Alberta is pleased and proud to accept a new role in an effort shared by all jurisdictions to meet the needs of Canadians wherever they are for transplanted organs and tissues. We are standing here today in a hospital with a national reputation for transplant expertise. This hospital is connected to a university whose groundbreaking research has appropriately and not surprisingly and has deservedly captured the attention of the international media. But the real transplant heroes are the people who sign their organ donor cards and discuss those intentions with their families to ensure that their commitment is honored. Now, just before this announcement this afternoon, we met with some of the families who continue to hold a loved one close because someone else was able to see past the pain of their loss and make the most selfless gift of all, the gift of an organ. We also met with some of the people who made that gift and brought a greater meaning to their personal tragedy. Both groups, the families of donors and recipients, share a gratitude at liver transplant to a patient with acute liver failure. And more recently, Alberta's first and Canada's third living lung transplant was done right here. Alberta's leadership in organ and tissue banking is firmly established. Edmonton's Comprehensive Tissue Centre is the only Canadian centre that is accredited with the American Association of Tissue Banks. And this hospital established the first umbilical cord blood bank in Canada to support leukemia treatment and research. We recognize medical practice and research builds on the sharing of knowledge. Today's announcement continues and enhances that commitment to collaboration. In most areas of healthcare delivery, jurisdiction is clearly defined, but when it comes to the need for an organ, there are no boundaries between Canadians. A kidney from Halifax can mean freedom from dialysis for someone from Vancouver. A heart from Calgary can save the life of somebody in Iqaluit. The effort to develop a national donation and transplant system must also be shared. It took all the provinces and territories and the federal government working together to bring us to this day. Ottawa is making this announcement in Edmonton, but in every capital, from Victoria to Halifax, Whitehorse to St. John's, shares in its history and in its future. To conclude, in our role as chair or co-chair for the various committees over the years, the province of Alberta has been very pleased to be part of those discussions. With the National Secretariat based here in Edmonton and the National Council headquartered here, we will continue that leadership role. I also ask Albertans to continue to lead by example in research, practice, and by signing their own organ donor cards. The Capital Region is a leader in all of Canada. Minister Rock referred to the 14 per million that is the national average for organ donation cards. In Alberta, it's 17, but in the Capital Region, it's 25. So I encourage people to sign those organ donor cards and speak with their families about their commitment. And I thank you very, very much for having me here today. Thank you.
Morrison of the Canadian Liver Foundation. She is also co-manager of the Advisory Committee on Organ and Tissue Donations Public Awareness Campaign to speak to us. Karen?
I'll be 6'3". My next slide. In order to increase Canada's organ donation rate, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Health made 18 key recommendations to the federal government. One of those recommendations was that Health Canada organize a national organ and tissue donor public awareness campaign. Health Minister Alan Rock selected the Canadian Liver Foundation to lead a national public awareness campaign on organ and tissue donation in conjunction with Health Canada Partnership and Marketing Division. Working closely with that division as a co-manager, we assembled a national advisory group of experts on organ and tissue donation to help develop the campaign's components and to act as a sounding board on all content and creative concepts. We call ourselves Partners in Organ and Tissue Donation. We developed a partner's logo, share your decision, that you'll see on all the materials that we have produced. A family joined together by the green ribbon, the international symbol of organ and tissue donation, and a slogan, share your decision, share your life. That important message to talk to your family about your decision to be an organ and tissue donor. This is the first time that all these groups have collaborated on a focused, integrated national awareness campaign. The object was not to reinvent the wheel, but to use the combined experience and resources of the partners to create a national unified campaign. Our advisory group includes members from the regional transplant programs, the BC Transplant Society, HOPE here in Alberta, the London Health Sciences Centre, the Atlantic Multi-Organ Transplant Program, as well as the transplant programs in Yukon, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. It also includes stakeholder organizations, Canadian Association of Transplantation, the Kidney Foundation of Canada, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, Organ Donation Ontario, and the Canadian Liver Foundation. Our partners also include representatives of donor families and recipients, as well as critical care personnel, transplant surgeons, and ethicists. We had quite a group. But what unites us all, what moves us and motivates us, is knowing that there are 3,700 people in this country today who are waiting for life-saving or life-improving organ and tissue transplants. During the campaign, we expect to reach millions of Canadians with the message, "Organ and tissue donation works." 100,000 of our posters entitled "Organ and Tissue Donation Works" will start appearing across the country next week, featuring 5 people whose lives have been saved or enriched by organ and tissue donation. Canadians will be able to get an information brochure at all Walmart stores in Canada and through the Loblaws chains in Ontario. All of these campaign materials are designed to tell Canadians about our website, the centerpiece of our awareness campaign, the National Organ and Tissue Donation Information Site, www.organandtissue.ca. Visit it today. At the website, Canadians can get answers to their questions on organ and tissue donation in both official languages, read stories of heartbreak and hope from donor families and transplant recipients, and connect to information on how to register as an organ and tissue donor, no matter where you live, as donor registration procedures vary from province to province. Canadians not connected to the internet can access information on organ and tissue donation by calling 1-800-O-Canada. We are also very proud and excited about 2 events planned for our National Organ and Tissue Donor Awareness Week, which is April 22nd to 29th. On Saturday evening, April 21st, global television stations in Canada will air a special primetime program, a documentary about organ and tissue donation called Share Your Decision, Share Your Life. The 1-hour presentation will feature organ donor families, transplant recipients, as well as show dramatic footage of a transplant operation. It will also highlight some of the work being done by our partners and of the exciting new advances being done here in Edmonton on pancreatic islet cells, a tissue transplant, which potentially can cure diabetes. The Right Honourable Adrian Clarkson, Governor-General of Canada, has graciously accepted to be patron of the National Awareness Campaign on Organ and Tissue Donation and will host the National Gift of Life ceremony at Rideau Hall in Ottawa the morning of April 23rd. During the Gift of Life ceremony, the transplant recipients featured on our Organ Donation Works poster will present Her Excellency and Minister Rock with a signed poster.
111, Station 5, G4, 111, Station 5, George 4, 111, Station 5, George 4.
That's not me. We hope that this first, as you can see, the poster is behind me, and those are the recipients. They will all be in Ottawa next weekend. We hope that this first national public awareness campaign on organ and tissue donation inspires Canadians to consider the critical shortage of organs and tissues for transplant in this country, to consider the thousands of fortunate people whose lives have been transformed by organ and tissue transplants, and to consider the very special families who have shared the gift of life. I would like to thank Minister Rock for giving me the opportunity to work on such a vital issue affecting Canadians today, and for his support on such an important cause. And to the partners, thank you. Thank you for your support, your diverse ideas, your knowledge, and your experiences. It has all been invaluable. Many of the components of the campaign were only possible due to the collaboration and generosity of you, our partners. No egos, no turf wars. The photos on our poster were from BC Transplant and CAT and London Health Sciences. The green ribbon pins that will be presented to members of Parliament and to members of the national media during Organ and Donor Tissue Awareness Week were initiated here in Canada by the Canadian Association of Transplantation Project 4 years ago. It is that kind of collaboration and teamwork that has made this project a success. The following example of our unified team is the Kidney Foundation of Canada. They have generously donated their candle campaign video to the advisory group Agree. Thank you very much.
We are confident that this can make a difference to the quality of life and length of life for many Canadians. We would like to thank the Honourable Alan Rock, for his personal interest and leadership in bringing this council from vision to reality. We also commend the provincial and territorial governments for their support of this initiative. We've been very, very happy working with Health Canada and the Canadian Liver Foundation and many, many other organizations across the country on Health Canada's Public Awareness Initiative. And we are very honored to contribute our Candle Media campaign to the overall broader efforts of the public awareness efforts of the Council. The Candle campaign confronts one of the major public barriers to organ donation, a lack of understanding of the importance of sharing one's decision with family members. Before we view the television ad, the Foundation would like to publicly thank Terry O'Reilly of Pyro Productions in Toronto, who along
between life and death. And this wish can only come true if you tell someone. Please, let your family know you want to be an organ donor.
A message from the Government of Canada.
An honor to speak to you today about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that of my family. I worked as a registered nurse, as Neil said, in this hospital for 19 years. Most of that time I worked in trauma, orthopedics, and general surgery. I have seen firsthand many recipients of tissue and organ donation. 2 years ago, my husband died unexpectedly of a sudden cardiac arrest. In the hospital emergency room, we were approached by a very caring and compassionate team of people. Because my husband had signed his donor card, our decision was almost instant. It was unanimous, as we all knew how very much he cared for and about others. We have been given quite a legacy because of this decision. We know that 2 people are now able to see because his corneas were successfully transplanted. We also know that his skin was used in a major burn trauma center for wound coverage, and that many patients have received bone for grafting purposes. Ironically, from his heart, they were able to harvest his pulmonary valve. Tissue donation is the quiet donation. Hopefully, with the creation of the Canadian Council for Donation and Transplantation, and the general public becomes more aware, there will be more donors. It is very special for my family to know that our loved one lives on in our hearts, but was given the opportunity to enhance the lives of others. Thank you very much.
Tell us what it's like to receive a life-saving transplant. Amy?
It's very hard for me to put into words what organ and tissue donation means to me. I have reaped the benefits from an organ transplant. The donors were courageous and committed. They gave me years of age my life was about to end, but organ donors gave me the ultimate gift, the gift of life. Now here I am, telling you what organ donation means to me. Well, what it means is I can breathe, I can sing, I can dance, I can live. It's a whole different life when you have organs that work. Organ donation saved my life. Why not be an organ donor and save not one, but possibly many lives? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy, for sharing that experience. And to you and to your parents, thank you very much for taking the time to be here. It's not easy to get up and speak before a group like this. As a matter of fact, you probably find having a transplant easier than coming and speaking here. Thank you. Well, that ends, ladies and gentlemen, the formal presentations. And I want to tell you that it's been an honor to represent so many people up here, to represent you. There's so many people in this room that have done so much to build a better healthcare system, to make contributions in so many different ways, and certainly an honor for me to be part of you. I want to say as well what an honor, and I'm sure it is for you too, to have in this room 3 outstanding ministers. And I can tell you from personal experience that they are working very much better together to improve a better healthcare system, to improve a better justice system for all of us. They do want to build a better Canada. They really do care. And I know you'd like to give them one more round of applause and say thank you for being here in Western Canada. Mr. Rock, Mr. McClellan, Minister Mark. Now the ministers are now open to take questions, so I'd like to invite Minister Rock, first of all, to come forward. And then the other ministers, I understand, will take questions as well.
First of all, Alberta leads the country, and for those who couldn't hear,
Mr. McClellan, Minister Moore. Now the ministers are now open to take questions, so I'd like to invite Minister Rock, first of all, to come forward. And then the other ministers, I understand, will take questions as well.
First of all, Alberta leads the country, and for those who couldn't hear the question is why Edmonton, why here? Alberta leads the country in the rate of donations, and of course Edmonton is even ahead of that. The practices and experiences here in Alberta, I think, can teach the rest of us a lot. Second, I think it's important to get some of these activities outside Ottawa. You know, last week we announced the Romano Commission on the future sustainability of Medicare. That commission is going to be focused in Saskatchewan, not Ottawa, although they'll have an Ottawa office as well. So getting the work of the Government of Canada outside central Canada is important, and we welcome the opportunity to have the Secretariat and the Council based right here. The question is, why is Canada so far behind other countries? I asked the Standing Committee on Health to look into that question 2 years ago, and they came up with 18 recommendations after they looked at the practice here and elsewhere. I think from their report, one of the most basic reasons is that we haven't had, I think someone's about to be called, hang on a second. We haven't had an organized effort like this where there's a national strategy. There's another thing that Gary Marr mentioned that I wasn't aware of until they pointed it out, but one of the key things is to have a team in the hospitals who are specially trained to deal with families who are going through the trauma of a loved one's death, to work with them toward the decision of allowing the donation to take place. We find that hospitals where those teams are present have a much higher rate of donation. So I think what we need to do is to share these insights across the country, have an organized, coordinated national strategy like they do in some other places, and that's what today's all about. Nous avons l'intention d'aborder une campagne pan-canadienne pour sensibiliser la population canadienne envers l'importance des données des organes et tissus pour la transplantation. Nous sommes, comme ministre de la Santé, pleinement conscients de l'importance de cette approche, de ces mesures, mais jusqu'aux dates, on n'a pas eu une approche pan-canadienne pour faire en sorte que les Canadiens et Canadiennes sont eux-mêmes conscients de la situation. Alors, après aujourd'hui, nous avons l'intention de financer, organiser une campagne dans chacun et chacune des provinces, en partenariat avec les gouvernements provinciaux, pour sensibiliser tout le monde concernant les choses que nous avons entendues nous-mêmes aujourd'hui ici à Edmonton. La sensibilisation de la population est absolument clé si nous allons gagner les objectifs que nous avons décrits aujourd'hui. Pardon? Pourquoi Edmonton? Parce que Alberta est la meilleure province au Canada concernant le taux des données, des organes et tissus pour la transplantation. Et Edmonton est plus élevé que ça. Alors, nous avons beaucoup à apprendre des pratiques, des approches adoptées par le gouvernement d'Alberta. Alors, la deuxième chose, c'est que c'est très important de placer les activités du gouvernement du Canada, pas seulement à Ottawa, dans la région capitale, mais ailleurs aussi, au Québec, en Alberta, et c'est aujourd'hui un exemple de cette approche. The question is, how will the $20 million be spent? And the $20 million will be spent over 5 years to fund the Secretariat, which will be based here in Edmonton. There'll be staffing and administrative expenses. There'll be expenses involved with the National Council meeting, and there'll also be expenses involved in broadcasting to the country what the National Council is doing, making sure that it's a transparent process. And part of it will also be devoted toward public awareness through purchasing media advertising or advertisements in newspapers or activities in communities that tend to draw attention to the importance of signing the card and discussing the decision with families. The question is to congratulate me on how well I've done moving so quickly on these recommendations, and I thank you very much. Actually, the question was far more rude than that. And it quoted others who apparently have said that I've been far too slow in responding. And let me say that I probably have. And maybe it would have been possible to have this announcement earlier than today. But the good news is that we've brought all the strands together. We've had the officials from all those 14 health departments work together through all the details of the recommendations. We've sorted out who will be on the council and who will appoint them. We've sorted out the funding, and we've identified our objectives. So there's no doubt that I could have done a better job, but I'm very glad that we've arrived at the day where it's happening, and that now it's going to be in the hands of the council, and they'll take it from here. The Secretariat? Well, there'll be a council, and the Secretariat will be here as a permanent resource for the council. People to organize their meetings, people to pull together research, people to respond to direction from council about communicating decisions or getting people organized. The council has the authority to create subcommittees to look into specific subjects. The Secretariat will make sure that those subcommittees meet, provide them with anything they need to get their job done. And the Secretariat will also oversee the organization and delivery of the awareness campaign by contracting with people to prepare ads, making sure that they're placed in appropriate places, tracking results and publishing them through the council. So the Secretariat is going to be people who are trained, working full-time to support the work of the National Council and to carry it through. Primary mission is, yes, research to understand the issues and advertising to advance the awareness efforts and supporting the council in its work.
Mr. Rock, thank you very much. It's time
Well,
to
thank
wrap it
you.
up.